For the past 8 months, my son, Brent, has secretly redirected all of my mail. He cleared out the rusty iron mailbox in front of the house every weekend under the guise of helping his old father clean up the messy paperwork. But in reality, he was secretly mortgaging the house I had lived in for 40 years, ensuring that I would never see a bank statement or foreclosure warning. If you had asked me a month ago, I would have told you that I was the luckiest father in Illinois. I would have said that my wife's passing had somehow helped my son realize the importance of family. My wife, Martha, passed away 3 years ago. We bought this craftsman-style wooden house in the Chicago suburbs in 1986. It has a wide porch, original oak stairs that always creak in the winter, and an iron mailbox at the end of the driveway that always lets out a dry screech whenever the door is pulled open. I retired after many years working as a carpentry engineer right after Martha died. My life is very quiet now. I tend to the garden, diligently carve a few small wooden items in the garage, and always look forward to the weekends. My son Brent is 36 years old this year. He works as a real estate broker downtown. He is the type of person who runs on pressure, always checking his phone, always talking about market fluctuations, interest rates, and profit margins. After my son and I lost Martha, we became much closer. About 8 months ago, his visits gradually became a regular, warm routine. Every Saturday afternoon, around 4 o'clock, his silver sedan would pull up in front of my house. I usually stood watching him from the kitchen window. Before entering the house, he always went to that rusty iron mailbox. He would pull out a thick stack of mail from the whole week envelopes, advertisement flyers, magazines, and tuck it under his arm. Then he would walk into the kitchen, pat my shoulder, and place the stack of mail on the kitchen counter. While I plated the dinner he brought, he would start sorting through the pile of envelopes. "Dad, don't bother yourself with this complicated paperwork," he would often say, casually tossing most of the important mail into his leather briefcase and throwing the advertisement flyers into the trash. "Let me handle this mess. I will pay the utility bills online so you don't have to strain your eyes writing checks anymore." I let him do it. I used to think it was a lovely gesture. I thought it was his way of taking care of me, lifting the exhausting administrative burdens of adulthood so I could truly enjoy my retirement. I bragged about him to my old friends on the golf course. I told them my son was a blessing, that he managed my accounts so perfectly I didn't need to bother opening a single letter anymore. I thought the pain of losing his mother made him thoughtful. I truly believed it was love, and because I believed it was love, I didn't realize the silence creeping into my life. I didn't realize my mailbox wasn't being cleaned. It was being sterilized. The first crack that brought everything crashing down didn't come from a bank or a lawyer. It came from David. David and I have been brothers in arms since our days serving in the Navy, almost 40 years now. He moved to Florida 5 years ago, but David is a man of incredibly principled habits. He never sends congratulatory text messages on the phone for special occasions. He sends handwritten cards, hardcover cards, with cursive handwriting carefully written in ink. Over the past 4 decades, he has never forgotten a single birthday of mine. My 69th birthday fell on a Tuesday in mid-March. I didn't expect a loud party. Brent had taken me to dinner at a fancy restaurant the Sunday before, paying with a heavy, gold credit card I had never seen, and brushing off all my worries about the price. But on that Tuesday, I walked to the end of the driveway to retrieve David's card. The mailbox was empty. There was only a dry leaf curled up at the bottom of the cold metal box. I didn't think much of it. The post office is occasionally delayed, especially with interstate mail. Wednesday arrived. I checked again. Empty. Thursday. Friday. The mailbox remained completely silent, and as I stood at the end of the driveway on Friday afternoon, staring into the dark, hollow cavity of that iron box, a strange realization began to cast a shadow over me. It wasn't just David's card that evaporated. Everything was gone. I hadn't received a property tax notice in months. I hadn't received the quarterly newsletter from the Veterans Association. I saw no health insurance statements, credit card offers, or even the cheap discount coupons from the corner hardware store. The mailbox wasn't just clean, it was dead. On Sunday morning, I sat at the kitchen dining table with a cup of black coffee and called David. I asked him about the weather in Florida, about his grandkids, and finally, trying to keep my tone as natural as possible, I brought up the birthday card. I subtly asked if perhaps he had forgotten the date this year. His voice rang out, carrying a sense of affectionate offense. I sent it 2 weeks ago, Arthur, the very day after that big storm. The post office must be running late again, I replied, my voice calm, even though my heart was starting to beat a strange, unsettling rhythm pounding straight against my chest. We chatted for another 10 minutes, and then hung up. I placed the phone down on the table. The house was terrifyingly silent. I walked out into the hallway and looked down at the small mahogany table near the front door. Lying there was Martha's brass letter opener. It was shaped like a small sword, heavy and tarnished by time. For decades, it had been a tool used every day. Martha used to use it to open handwritten letters, Christmas cards, and even the certificate of the bank loan payoff that we had celebrated 10 years ago. I picked it up. A thin layer of dust covered the brass surface. For months, no one had touched it. I returned to the kitchen and looked out the window, toward the driveway. I thought of Brent. I thought of his facial expression every time he stood sorting mail on my kitchen counter. He never looked sneaky. He never looked guilty. He looked very organized. He looked exactly like a man managing a high-risk project. That, I thought, was the part that chilled me the most, looking back. That ruthlessly unshrinking efficiency. He didn't gather that pile of mail to help me clean up. He eradicated them because mail is how the outside world speaks to you. It's how you know what you owe, what you own, and where you stand. If you control the mailbox, you control the reality of the person living inside that house. I didn't call Brent that Sunday. I didn't ask him where my mail was. When you live to be 69, you learn to distinguish the boundary between a simple mistake and an intentional pattern. That empty mailbox was not a mistake. It was a symptom of something much larger, something moving silently right beneath the floorboards of my life. That quiet Sunday afternoon, I decided that I would not go question my son to find the truth. I would find it out myself, and I would start bright and early tomorrow morning. On Monday morning, at exactly 8:30, I parked my old Ford pickup truck in front of the county post office. The wind blowing in from Lake Michigan carried the piercing cold characteristic of March, but I didn't even bother zipping up my jacket. In my head, there was only a single thought, repeating like a steady hammer beat. There must be a reasonable explanation. Maybe the postal system delivered to the wrong area. Maybe my name was mistakenly deleted from the mail carrier's route list. You see, when you love someone, your brain will do everything it can to build bridges of justification before being forced to jump into the abyss of the truth. Inside, the post office was deserted. The clerk at the counter named Kyle, a young man wearing horn-rimmed glasses, was sluggishly taking a sip of coffee. When I stepped up and handed him my ID, asking why the mailbox in front of my house had been completely empty for the past several weeks, Kyle frowned slightly. He turned and clattered on his computer keyboard. The monitor reflected a pale light onto his glasses. 15 seconds passed. The silence in the post office right then was so thick that I could clearly hear the cooling fan of the old computer. Then Kyle looked up at me, his voice carrying the confusion of a wage earner who didn't understand what was going on. He said that I couldn't receive mail because I had personally requested it be forwarded elsewhere. "A permanent mail forwarding order, Mr. Evans," Kyle repeated, pointing at the red text on the screen. "You registered online last August. All mail addressed to your home address is automatically gathered at the sorting center and forwarded directly to a P.O. box in downtown Chicago." I stood rooted to the spot. "Could you print that piece of paper out for me?" I asked, my voice deepening, not trembling at all. Kyle printed the notice out and pushed it across the glass counter. I looked down at it. The name of the recipient registered at that P.O. box was printed clearly in black ink. Brent Evans Real Estate, LLC. My heart didn't beat wildly. I didn't scream, nor did I slam my hand on the counter. The feeling at that moment was not like the seething anger you often see in the movies. It was like missing a step on the stairs in the dark, that moment of weightless suspension, your stomach dropping in knots before you actually crash hard onto the wooden floor. I folded the paper, stuffed it into my jacket pocket, nodded in thanks to Kyle, and walked straight out to the car. When I sat in the driver's seat, I didn't insert the key into the ignition right away. I just sat there, both hands tightly gripping the steering wheel, staring at the misty dewdrops condensed on the windshield. Have you ever held tightly onto a piece of paper, an old object, or a text message, and realized that the entire trust you had built up over the years was just crushed by a single small detail? If you have ever experienced that moment, when the truth tears through the facade of fake love, please leave your story in the comment section. There are silent pains that we should never have to bear alone. Last August, that was exactly when Brent started his routine of visiting me regularly every Saturday afternoon. That was when he began attentively cleaning up the messy paperwork on the kitchen counter. He wasn't cleaning up trash. He was creating a perfect physical camouflage for a financial crime by personally taking away the magazines, empty envelopes, or harmless promotional mail left over in the mailbox. He made me believe the mailbox was still functioning normally and that my son was simply helping me sort through it. But a son doesn't forward his father's mail just to hide utility bills. He must be hiding something much larger, something that could make me lose my house. Instead of turning the car around to go home, I drove straight to the First National Bank branch at the edge of town. This was where 10 years ago, Martha and I had hugged each other in celebration when we paid off the final penny on our home mortgage loan. I asked to see Sarah, the branch vice president, who had worked here long enough to clearly remember my face. When I sat down in the leather chair opposite her desk and asked to check the status of my property, Sarah smiled warmly and clicked her mouse into the system. But only a few seconds later, the smile on her lips froze. Sarah's hand holding the mouse paused mid-air. She looked up at me with a gaze mixing caution and pity. The words she spoke next were like a drill boring straight into my chest. Sarah asked, with utmost caution, whether I had any questions regarding the payment terms of the home equity line of credit, HELOC, that I was currently carrying. A mortgage loan? I didn't say it out loud, only repeated it in my head, my throat dry. I nodded, signaling for her to print it out. As the file folder was pushed toward me, every disjointed puzzle piece from the past 8 months finally fit together into a cruel picture. A $200,000 loan had been drawn out based on the equity of my home. The application was signed and approved exactly last August. The signature on it was not real ink. It was an electronic signature, e-signature, accompanied by a temporary financial power of attorney in the name of Brent Evans. I recalled a summer evening last year. Brent hastily handed me his tablet, telling me to touch sign the screen to confirm the senior property tax refund form. I signed it without even wearing my reading glasses, placing absolute trust in my only son. The mailing address for the debt notices and bank late warnings for this massive loan, unsurprisingly, perfectly matched the quiet P.O. box in downtown Chicago. I sat in the bank, staring at the massive debt figures printed in bold. I suddenly understood the source of the expensive dinners, understood the heavy gold credit card Brent often flashed, understood the stress that was always etched in the corners of his eyes. His brokerage firm was going bankrupt, and instead of coming to his father for help like a man, he chose the path of turning me into a ghost with a signature. He used the house that held all his mother's memories as a life preserver for his own greed. And that postal order was his way of throwing away the countdown clocks, ensuring that if he couldn't pay the debt, I would only know I lost the house on the day the sheriff came knocking to kick me out on the street. I folded the bank file, nodded goodbye to Sarah, and walked out to the car. The drive home that day was shorter than usual, but the feeling the house brought had completely changed. When I stepped through the door, the silence of the rooms no longer brought the peaceful feeling of retirement. It was cold and calculating. It was the scene of a crime where the thief still came for dinner every weekend. When I stepped foot back into my house that Monday afternoon, the air inside seemed to have completely changed in density. The house was the same, still the pendulum clock ticking rhythmically in the corner of the living room, still the old photos of Martha smiling on the mantel, still the familiar smell of oak, but it was no longer a home. It had become a crime scene, where the crook didn't break in through a window with a crowbar, but walked in with a master key, bringing dinner every weekend. People often think that discovering the ultimate betrayal will be accompanied by screams, hot tears, or a destructive fit of rage smashing furniture. But when that betrayal comes from your own flesh and blood, from the child you once carried on your shoulders walking along a deserted beach, your physical reaction is entirely different. It is absolute paralysis. A bone-chilling cold spreads from your chest all the way to your fingertips. I walked past the kitchen, stepped into the hallway, and stopped in front of the small mahogany table. Martha's brass letter opener still lay there, still as a silent witness. I picked it up, feeling the cold weight of the metal in the palm of my hand. The blade wasn't sharp enough to hurt anyone, but it was designed to do one thing only: tear open paper envelopes. I used the hem of my shirt to wipe off the thin layer of dust on the handle. In my head, a decision had taken shape, resolute and unshakable. This house was where Martha and I had built our lives through sweat and years of grueling hard work. I would not let a scammer, even one bearing my last name, use it as firewood to burn for his own financial failures. The biggest challenge struck at 6 o'clock on Wednesday evening. The landline in the kitchen rang loudly. The caller ID displayed Brent's name. It was the midweek check-in call he usually made, another habit I had once considered a sign of deep care. I stood looking at the flashing phone, counted to the third ring, trying to regulate my breathing. I picked up the receiver. "Dad? What are you doing?" Brent's voice rang out on the other end of the line. Warm, gentle, mixed with the usual rush of a busy man who had just gotten off work. "I'm just getting ready to cook dinner," I replied, surprised at myself for the calmness and composure in my voice. "Have you been sleeping well lately? The weather's been erratic the last few days. Is your joint pain acting up again?" he continued to ask. Every single sentence calculated with the precision of a perfect script. Have you ever had to listen to the voice of someone you know for certain is secretly ruining your life? That feeling is indescribably chilling. Each of his inquiring words sounded like nails scratching down a chalkboard. He wasn't asking out of concern for my health. He was asking to gauge whether his project was safe. He needed to know if his senile old man was still sitting obediently in the fog he had cast. "I'm doing well, Brent. Nothing to complain about," I said. "That's great. I'll drop by on Saturday afternoon. What are you craving so I can buy it?" he asked. "Anything is fine, son. I'll be waiting for you." "Okay. I love you, Dad. I love you too." When I hung up the receiver, I had to grip the edge of the kitchen counter with both hands to keep from collapsing. That "I love you, Dad," which used to be the greatest source of comfort in the lonely nights of old age, had now become a dead language. It was the sound a hunter makes when he believes the prey is still fast asleep. On Thursday morning, I didn't go out to garden as usual. I put on an old suit, brought my brown leather briefcase, and drove downtown. I didn't go to the police. The police would need time to investigate, and family property issues are often easily dismissed by them as civil disputes. I needed someone who could lock down all of Brent's escape routes in a flash. I walked into the office of Thomas, the old lawyer who had drafted the will for my wife and me 15 years ago. He was a man of few words, possessing a sharp mind hidden behind thick reading glasses. When I spread out the post office's mail forwarding confirmation paper and the file of the $200,000 HELOC mortgage loan with the electronic signature on his desk, the air in the room noticeably sank. Thomas pushed up his glasses, reading the file over and over again. He didn't utter any empty words of pity. He knew me well enough to understand I wasn't here seeking comfort. "He has backed you into a corner, Arthur," Thomas said, his voice raspy. "This mortgage loan is a revolving credit line. He has maxed out the $200,000. Based on his company's financial history that I can do a preliminary check on, he is stuck dead in margin calls. He has no ability to pay the principal. And soon, he won't even be able to shoulder the interest. When he defaults, the bank will foreclose on this house." "What do I have to do to stop this, Thomas?" I asked. The old lawyer pulled a notepad toward himself and picked up a pen. "First, we will immediately send a credit freeze request to all 3 national credit reporting bureaus under your Social Security number. No new loans will be opened anymore. Second, I will draft a fraud affidavit to send straight to the bank branch, denying the legality of that electronic signature and invalidating the temporary power of attorney he is using. If we do that, the bank will criminally investigate him," I said, not as a question, but as a confirmation. "That's correct." Thomas looked me straight in the eyes. "This is wire fraud and financial institution fraud. There will be prison time. Are you ready for that, Arthur?" A lot of parents, when reaching this step, choose to withdraw their complaints to save their child. I looked out the window, where Chicago's rushed stream of traffic was gliding by. I thought about the empty mailbox, I thought about the feeling of being erased from my own world. "He didn't give me the chance to be his father anymore, Thomas," I replied thoughtfully. "He forced me to be a protector of my own property. Go ahead and proceed with all the paperwork." On Friday evening, my house was strangely quiet. I had cleaned the kitchen spotlessly. On the oak dining table in the middle of the room, I placed a single large manila yellow envelope. Inside were copies of the postal order, the bank files, and the draft asset freeze order from Thomas. Right next to the envelope, I placed Martha's brass letter opener. It gleamed faintly under the kitchen's yellow lights. I was ready. Tomorrow, when Brent came for dinner and intended to clean up the junk mail as usual, he would realize that his senile old man had learned how to open the letters of his own life himself. 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon. The familiar sound of tires crunching on the gravel driveway rang out. Brent's silver sedan parked in my driveway, glaring under the faded sunlight of the late afternoon. I sat at the oak dining table in the kitchen. On the empty tabletop, there was only the manila yellow envelope and Martha's brass letter opener. I didn't turn on the lights. The only light in the room came from the long streaks casting in from the window. I heard the sound of Brent's footsteps coming up the porch. As had been his habit for the past 8 months, those footsteps would veer toward the rusty iron mailbox before putting the key into the front door lock. But today, before he could even lay a hand on that dead mailbox, I spoke out from the inside. "The mailbox is empty, Brent. Come inside." The door opened. Brent walked in, carrying a steaming bag of dinner from the Italian restaurant I liked in one hand, holding a bunch of keys in the other. He frowned slightly, a fleeting look of confusion on his cleanly shaven face, but very quickly, the mask of confidence was pulled up. "Did you clean out the mailbox yourself, Dad? That's great." "I bought the lasagna you like," he said, flashing a bright smile and walking toward the kitchen counter. He was about to put the food bag down, to continue the charade of a filial son visiting his father on the weekend. But then his eyes struck the oak table. He saw the manila envelope. He saw my perfectly straight, cold sitting posture. The smile on his lips broke. "What's wrong, Dad? What are those papers?" he asked, his voice beginning to have a very slight tremble. The room was so quiet that I could clearly hear his slightly hurried breathing. I didn't answer immediately. I slowly reached out and grabbed the brass letter opener. The freezing handle pressed against my palm. Brent took a half step back, his eyes bewildered. He wasn't afraid of the knife. He knew I would never use violence. What he feared was my deadly calmness. With a slow and deliberate motion, I plunged the brass tip into the edge of the manila envelope and sliced a firm line down. The sound of paper being torn rang out sharply in the silent space. I pulled the papers out, flattened them, and pushed them to the edge of the table, right in front of Brent. "This is the statement for the $200,000 home equity line of credit, HELOC, you opened under my name, using an electronic signature," I said, my voice deep and heavy. I proceeded to slide a second piece of paper on top. "And this is the permanent mail forwarding order to your company's P.O. box. The thing you used to ensure I would die of old age in this house, without ever knowing it was about to be foreclosed on by the bank." The bag of food fell from Brent's hands, hitting the floor with a thud. Deep red sauce leaked out from the plastic container, staining the oak floor like an open wound. Brent stared at the papers, all the blood drained from his face. He was no longer a smug real estate broker. He looked exactly like a child whose petty theft had just been exposed, stripped bare and pathetic. "Dad, let me explain." Brent stammered, raising his hands in the air as if wanting to wave away the truth laid out before his eyes. The real estate market crashed. I got margin calls. I meant to pay it back. I swear to you I was going to pay it back as soon as I sold the South apartment complex. I just wanted to keep everything okay. Okay for whom? I cut him off. My voice wasn't loud, but sharp as a knife. "Were you going to let me sit waiting for mail at that iron box until the sheriff came to smash the door and kick me out on the street, and then what would you do? Play the role of a grieving son putting his senile old father in a nursing home on Social Security? No. Dad, I'm your son." He burst into tears. Tears streamed down his contorted face. He slumped down, his hands gripping the edge of the table. "Please, Dad. If you call the police, I'll go to prison. My career will be over. Please don't do this." I looked at the life that Martha and I had created together, the child I had taught to hold a claw hammer, taught to throw a baseball. A physical pain strangled my chest. People say maternal and paternal love is blind. And indeed, that instinct wanting to reach out and protect him, wanting to rip up that file folder to keep the family intact, screamed in my mind. But I looked down at Martha's letter opener. My wife was a deeply loving person, but she never compromised with lies. Lawyer Thomas submitted the fraud affidavit to the bank on Friday morning. I said, each word falling like boulders blocking all his hope. My credit has been fully frozen. The bank will sue you for interstate financial fraud. No one can stop it anymore. Brent was stunned. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He realized that everything was over. The ruthlessness and efficiency he once used to isolate me, I had now used to disarm him. I stood up, turned my back to him, and looked out the window, where the darkness was slowly swallowing the driveway. Call your lawyer, Brent, and never come back to this house again. I stood there until I heard his dragging footsteps walk out the door, the sound of the car engine starting, then the sound of tires rolling away, fading, until entirely swallowed by the night. The house returned to its inherent silence. But it was no longer the deadly silence of being isolated. It was the silence of a room that had just been swept clean of its cancers. Spring arrived earlier than other years. Snowdrop buds started to sprout at the base of the old oak tree in front of the porch. Yesterday, while I was sitting enjoying my morning cup of coffee out on the porch, a familiar sound that had been absent for a long time rang out. The dry screech of the rusty iron mailbox. The mail carrier waved to me and then continued driving. I walked down the path and pulled the mailbox door open. Inside was a stack of woodworking magazines, a power bill, a seed catalog, and a stiff blue envelope with elegant cursive handwriting. David finally sent me a late birthday card. I smiled, lightly rubbing my thumb over that honest ink. Brent's case is still in the trial process. The bank recovered the fraudulent loan, and he is facing federal prison time for financial institution fraud. I did not attend the hearings. Some relatives accused me of being cruel, saying that he was flesh and blood after all. But I've learned one thing at this age. Never confuse control with care. Never allow someone to use the name of love to strip away your voice and your right to exist. When someone covers your eyes and tells you they are taking you for a walk, they could very well be leading you to a cliff. I walked back to the porch and dropped into the wooden rocking chair. The spring breeze blew softly through my hair. I opened David's card, read the simple greetings, and felt an immense sense of relief. I am 69 years old. I live alone. I cook my own meals, pay my own bills, and open the letters of my life with my own hands. And I will not let anyone erase me ever again. Have you ever had to face a moment of realizing that a familiar loved one is the very person silently draining your life? What did you do when standing on the boundary between blind love and self-respect that must be protected? Please leave your story in the comments section. There are wounds that, when spoken aloud, are just beginning to heal. Thank you for listening to my story. Please subscribe to the channel to continue accompanying us through the most authentic life stories.